Next speaker, Co-keynote is Carole Ray. She'll be stepping up a little bit and sharing her light and love with us. Professional practitioner of astrology. She's a Reiki master, certified hypnotherapist, and in 1975 founded the Academy of Astrology. She has been moderating 2 Abraham groups for over 5 years now, and Carole has developed and teaches courses on visualization, manifestation, and Reiki. Carole sits on the board of the International Federation of Astrologers Network, and she does consultations at the Coyote Wisdom bookstore in Lansing. Please welcome Carole as she presents Astrology Forecast for 2017 and 2018.
Okay. Yeah, I think when I said. I have to turn this on when I find it. I'm going through one of Steve's healing crisis things because I twisted my ankle a couple of weeks ago, and although I'm doing better, I still need to set. Standing on it is a little painful. So, okay, I have some handouts that are going to be handed out to you. It has a really strange-looking page that looks like this, and I'm going to be talking from that page because it's a timeline and explain to you what's on there. So while they're handing those out, I do want to address the eclipse that we just had. In astrology, when there is an eclipse, sometimes things happen right on that day, but we call them a wild card in astrology, and that following that, it depends on where you can see the eclipse. And if you can see wherever that eclipse is seen, that country and the world is going through changes. So, as you all know, because it was so publicized, this last eclipse we had in August, you could see coast to coast as it went through. So that said to all the astrologers that the changes that are going to happen will happen in the United States. And as you saw right after that happened, we had the Texas disaster, we had crazy fires in the West, and then Florida and the Virgin Islands and Bahamas got hit. So that's kind of given us an idea. We call it a wild card because we're not sure how it's going to work out. But except that we know for sure it's affecting the United States. So I think we've seen already how part of it's going to work out. And it lasts for 6 months until the next eclipse comes along, which is in February 15th. And that eclipse is at 27 degrees of Aquarius. So if you're a Leo or an Aquarius, you might have been affected by these eclipses yourself. So if you have some changes going on, or if you have that strong in your natal chart. But it was interesting to me that they're going to be exactly opposing each other. And 28 degrees Leo, which was the eclipse in August that we all got to see, is on a fixed star, which also makes it even more potent in astrology. And that fixed star was Regulus. And Regulus is about rise and fall of power. And that happens to be the exact degree that's on Donald Trump's chart. So I figure we'll see more of this up and down with the presidency and what's going on, and until this is over, I don't know for sure how that's going to work out. But that says to me and other astrologers that this is a very turbulent time in the United States. Now, what I want to, did everybody get a handout? Okay. I try to put everything on a timeline, so there's a lot of information on here. It's just that you're going to have to try to figure out what I'm really trying to show you. But I'm going to start with the planetary cycles that are in the center part of that. In astrology, it's almost like there's a dance of the stars going on, or the planets to each other. They have this synchronistic thing that they do together. And then we have what are called the great cycles. And when the great cycles come along, that's a really potent time period. Now, the first one that's listed on here is Neptune conjunct Pluto, which was back in 1891. This is a global culture type of aspect, and I think that's about when the Industrial Revolution really got going, and we started developing the telegraph and all these things, and it was in Gemini. So what do you Geminis do really good? Communicate. And so we're at this real high communication level that's just speeding up and getting bigger and bigger and bigger as we go. But this cycle lasts for 492 years. So we won't have the next one, and I got that written down here somewhere because I can never remember, in 2383 will be the next part of that cycle. Most of us will be reincarnated if we choose to come back here. To find out what's going on. But that'll be a really powerful time period. The second one that's on here is Neptune Uranus. That's in the middle, and I tried to spell it out so you would have an idea what I was talking about. And this one's about the unfoldment of civilizations. And so often what happens during this one is that you see a germination of what starts at the beginning just keeps unfolding, unfolding, unfolding. And depending on the civilization or the country you live in will tell you how much that's going to happen. But it's happening, these are worldwide cycles that go on. This one happened in 1993. And it happened at the degree of 19 degrees Scorpio, which is actually a good star also. We call it Serpentis, and we say it's for good or bad. And as you well know in metaphysics, good or bad is, it's part of this dual world that we live on. So we see the best and the worst of things happening. But it's the symbol for it was a woman who opens a curtain and finds a new world, and discovers a new world. But she had to go behind the curtain to find it. And so it's kind of interesting to think about that. But this is when we had the explosion of the internet. And so to me, the internet is what we're all capable of doing. We just haven't figured out how to use all that part of our brains yet. But it's an example of what you're capable of doing. So instead of having to go Google something, you would be able to, and I think Yogananda talked about this in his book, that you can access all information of everything that's going on if you can attain that ability to do that. Now we have the internet showing us that you have that capacity. And that would be opening the curtain to me and going far beyond all of that. So that became a really important cycle also. And that one lasts for 172 years, and the next one is in 2165. Again, we will not be around probably in these personalities to see that. Unless you're going to live that long, if you figured that out, then you don't need the internet either. That's the way I think about it. And the next one is one I want to talk about a little bit more because this one is really potent right now. And that's the last one in that middle section. In 1965, we had Uranus conjunct Pluto. And that one is about the radical restructuring of people and civilizations. Well, most of you guys lived through the 60s. Anybody here not know about the 60s? I mean, it was radical. I mean, we had wars going on. We had the Vietnam War. We had all these assassinations going on. We had protests everywhere happening. And then we had new movements started. We had climate change, we had the feminist movement, we had civil rights movements. I mean, everything that we have been operating with since, because a lot of the laws came either then or in a few years after that, that covered all these things. got challenged, where if you go further along the line, and the next orange spot under the 2010 is in 2012, those two planets kind of started crashing with each other. So everything went into a challenge point. And this one is short enough, and that's why I tried to get these many years on here, because I wanted to show the beginning and then the first crisis point of that. So in 2012, I believe that was the second election for Barack Obama, but that's when everything, civil rights, gay rights, LGBT community things, every climate control or climate change, everything's been challenged. You know, people say that I'm not going to do that, you know, and so we've got this really major split between people in the United States. And I think there's some of that going on in the rest of the world, because this does apply to the whole world. And there's a lot of movements in Europe going on now too, because we have the nationalists and all these things that are happening. So we have these clashing of forces. And so we can either go backwards, and we're not going to go backwards. I don't care how many people try to make us go backwards in time. It's never going to happen. It can't happen. You know, give me a wormhole maybe, you know, or some kind of portal that I can step back. But we're going to go forward with all these things and start cleaning them up. And I think that all these planetary cycles also have to do with human consciousness. It has to do with the evolution on this planet, because if you go even 200 years ago, I mean, we've made great progress. And as you know right now, everything's going so fast. I mean, even news, you get new breaking news. You know, if you watch TV these days, and I do, because I like to look at the astrology of nations. And so everything's happening really quick. And we're getting more stories a day. Used to be one big story a week, or one big story a month, or a couple months, and then another big story. Now we're getting 2 or 3 things a day. So everything is moving really quickly. Now the other cycles that are big cycles that I put on here, and there's more cycles than these, but these are like, if you are on the planet Earth and you could look at these planets up there, it's like they're all aligned. You know, so we call these the great conjunctions because the alignment. And in astrology, we say when 2 planets come together, they're unified. They're like married. They got married, you know, with their energies. So that's why we say these are big cycles. So the other cycles on the bottom are, there's Saturn, Uranus is at the top part of it, and in 1989 we had Saturn conjunct Uranus, and in 1989 we had Saturn conjunct Neptune. And that was the year exactly when the Berlin Wall came down, and the Iron Curtain and the Soviet Union changed everything. So that one happened right on time, but I want you to understand these are long cycles, so they evolve over time. These cycles are a little bit shorter. So like the Saturn-Uranus cycle is 45 years, and I wrote all that on here so you could see it. The Saturn-Neptune one is 36 years. Now, Saturn-Uranus tends to be a very conservative, right-wing kind of cycle. So whatever's going on with them is happening during that time, and then the Saturn-Neptune tends to be more socialistic, or you know, it's a very spiritual cycle. Whenever you put Neptune into anything, it becomes very spiritual, and because it's very idealistic. And our ideals don't always work out. We've tried a lot of things idealistically. Wouldn't this be the best thing we could do? And then we get it and we go, you know, that didn't quite work out right. But that's who we are as humans, and we have to try these things. So there was several big important things that went on then. And then Saturn Pluto, which always shapes history. We call it the ruler of the ages because whatever time period it affects seems to where the big changes are coming. And that one happened in 1982. So now if you go over on this chart, I tried to put some stuff in blue here so it would be highlighted. That's where we are today and what's going on today. And if you look down through there, there's hardly anything going on. You know, these cycles are in effect, but we don't have any new ones that are coming to replace them for a few years. And this was the point I would like to make, is that after this Uranus-Pluto one that was the challenge of the 60s that came up all these years later, you know, with the same topics. We're in this like kind of fallout time period. It's like Alice went down the rabbit hole and she's still trying to figure out where she's going to land. You know, so we're just kind of floating through everything. All this stuff happened. There's nothing except for a couple things I will talk about that are a lot more minor but important. And, you know, when you're looking at no big things happening. But we're kind of floating through this time period now. We're not sure where we're going to land. We had no idea, just like with Alice in Wonderland. And maybe it's time that we just let go and see what happens. You know? So that's where we're at right now. Now, then we have things like eclipses that will come along and will help identify some things. And we have things like the planets changing signs which is at the very top of here, and that happens a lot more on a regular basis. Now, one of the things before I forget to bring this up to you is on the very bottom, I put a little thing that says, upcoming Mercury retrogrades, and this is where these are time periods for the rest of this year and going into 2018 when Mercury is retrograde. And I think everybody should know that. Years ago, people would call up and say, "What's going on?" And we'd say, "Oh, Mercury's retrograde. Don't expect things to go the way you planned. It's all going to change a little bit." Or if I'm scheduling appointments, I will tell you right now that about half of those appointments will call and cancel and reschedule. That's the kind of thing that happens under Mercury retrograde. Now when people call, they'll go, "Is Mercury retrograde?" So everybody needs to know about Mercury retrograde because that's when there's all these miscommunications. So I just put that on there for your information so you can follow that. Now let's go back up to the top. And this is about when the planets change signs. And they tend to bring trends in the world. So in 2008, it was the first year, Pluto went into Capricorn at the end of November, right after Barack Obama became elected president. And Pluto's all about death, regeneration, rebirth. So it's that type of, it'd be like the death card in the tarot deck. It doesn't mean death, but it does mean there's a death of something going on. So whatever sign it's in is where the changes are going to take place. So on a world level, Capricorn are your executives. They're your government officials. And Pluto's like IRS or the mafia. You know, we always say with Pluto, well, if Pluto's coming out of something, you're not in charge. You know, it's when you're dealing with something that's a little bit bigger than you, but it's going to change you. And then you're going to go through this process where you go, you know what, I do have power here. But in the beginning, you don't feel like you're in charge. So Pluto going into Capricorn, we often say is the rise and fall of nations. And when I saw that, to me that's world government. And it's also mega corporations. And it's when money and big business, because Capricorn rules big business, are taking over. And that's what we really virtually have going on. I don't care what you're into. A big business comes in, takes it over, and they redo everything. And that's what we're seeing right now. And you're going to see, we will go through how it does work, how it doesn't work, and then on a consciousness level, as you've heard all day, when you stay centered and you actually go out and say, well, you know what, I'm not going to do that. You bring a new power into the world. And it's kind of like going to war and having one person that's a dictator. If all the people rose up, you know, they would not be in power anymore. But we're afraid, we're intimidated, all the kinds of stuff that goes along with that. So it takes a while before we get going. Now, in the United States of America chart, which was on July 4th, and I can't remember the year, but it was before we won the Revolutionary War. Pluto is at 27 degrees of Capricorn. And it's taken all these years for Pluto to go all the way around the zodiac and come back. So for the first time, the U.S. is looking at themselves going, what it took for them to go through a war and to win their freedom. So we declared our freedom before we won it, and then we won it when Pluto went into Aquarius. Now Pluto goes into Aquarius, you have to lift these up to see it, in 2023. And what's interesting to me about looking at all these new things that are getting ready to happen is nothing new gets moving into the right direction. So we're kind of in that point where we're in free fall, we're all trying to figure out what's going on, where we stand. You know, some people will go out and become, I can't think of the word I want, you know, will be humanitarians, some will be terrorists, you know, we have all these people of change out there. But we won our freedom when the United States of America won their freedom when Pluto went into Aquarius. And so when you look at this, all these new things are coming, but they're not coming until 2020 and on. So you can kind of look down here and see that there are new things getting ready to happen, but it's kind of like between 2020 and 2025 when we start moving in a new direction, or people are learning enough, because remember, this is about consciousness change, is that until you're there, until you make up your mind where you want things to go, nothing's happening. So, and people we're not good at change. I mean, are any of you good at change? I'm not good at change. And I love your talk, Steve, because I would love to be in the flow all the time, and have been on occasion, and then I'm out of the flow and not feeling good. I do things like sprain my ankle. You know, that's me being out of the flow. But when we make changes and we flow with it, that's great. And we can watch what's going on in the world and make up our minds. What kind of world do you want to live in? You know, I want to live in a spiritual world. I want to live in a world where we love and respect each other. And that's what I think is going to happen in the 20s. At the beginning of the 20s and into the 20s, I think we will start moving outward in that direction. But right now, it's kind of all in here. You know, we're processing it. And, you know, someone said after the election, and because I was not in favor of the way the election went, and I don't want to start any kind of political discussion, but I was one of those people that was just depressed and stumped. And they said, we have been practicing all our lives to be light workers, and now we got to put it to use. And I think we're kind of like, if you did a cycle like this and you go down, because every cycle has a down level and an up level, I think we went like this and we're going this way right now. And so it's all up to us.
how this next time period is going to work out. And where do you want things to be? How do you want this world of connectedness that we live in to go? Because we are all connected to each other no matter which way we look at it. And it's important for us to make up our minds to where are you at? What do you stand for? And I'm not talking about being in judgment. I mean, I do that really good periodically myself, but it's not about being in judgment. It's about looking at what's going on and taking your power, because you are all powerful, amazing beings, and how do you want to direct that? What kind of world do you want to live in? So we have the power, we just have to claim it and decide what it is and what we want. It's like manifesting. If you don't know what you want, what do you get? Nothing or chaos. You know, if you're clear about what you're trying to manifest, then magical things start happening. And so groups like this, it's really important for us to get really focused and have our intent go in those directions. Now, the two things that are going to happen this next year that are significant to me in astrology is the planet Saturn, which will stay in the sign for 2.5 years. This December is going to go into Capricorn. Now, it does well in the sign of Capricorn, so it can be really positive rules and regulations or authoritarian groups that are doing some really good work, or it could be a little bit too much authoritarianism going on. I'm not sure how that's going to work, and I'm not sure that it's going to happen right in the beginning, but it is going to kind of shift. We've had Uranus and Aries, which is the first sign of the zodiac, and Uranus is about, I call it the planet that is about breakup, breakdown, breakthrough. You know, so whatever's going on with you, you're gonna break up with it. You don't want to do it anymore. It's kind of like Steve said, waking up in the morning saying, you know, I don't like being in this spot. So you're breaking it up and you break it down, and then you make your breakthrough. It's been in Aries. And while it's in Aries, I mean, anybody here that's here in this room that's in Aries, you have gone through some big changes in the last 7 years. And they're just about ready to even out, unless you were born at the very end of Aries, which would be about April 20th, 21st, 19, 20, 21. But it's still not a bad time for them. Changes happen, and they've been going on. Saturn's going to enter Capricorn, but Uranus is going to enter Taurus in May of next year. Now that's the only one I'm really concerned about. Uranus is a very mental planet. It rules things like electronics, the internet, anything that's progressive and forward-moving. Inventions is probably the better way to put it. It doesn't do well in Taurus. Taurus is, of all the signs of the zodiac, and I love Taurus people, so I don't want you to be offended when I say this, that you are the most stubborn people in the world. So when you're focused on something and someone says, hey, you're wrong, you got to change, and you go, nope, I'm not even going to listen to you. You know, and because you worked hard to get there, and you're not giving it up, and you're not really that open to looking for new things. So Uranus comes along, and it goes break up, break down, break through. So, or as I said to somebody, I feel like I keep hitting the wall in the last couple of weeks, like I keep hitting this wall. You know, it's in my chest or something. And I went, I've got to find a door. I mean, that's too hard to hit that wall. And I'm a very stubborn person, so when I get moving in one direction, it's hard for me to make a change. I don't make a change easy is what I'm saying. You know, I make a change hard. And I think humanity in general makes hard changes. Uranus and Taurus is it could be economical. we could see a change and it stays in there for 7 years, so it'll last 7 years. We could see changes in economy. The Great Depression was under Uranus and Taurus. So I think we're going to see a lot of changes in the economies of the world, and we're already seeing some of that getting ready to happen now. With the UK going out of away from the euro. So we're starting to see where all this stuff is happening. It also is about Earth. Taurus is the best Earth sign of all of them. They are happiest when they spend some time outside and connected with the planet. That is really important when we say Taurus has the green thumb. So they're very connected to the land. So when Uranus goes in there, the first thing I think about is land changes. You know, more earthquakes, more, you know, we got climate stuff going on, and it might change the coastlines. There might be lands that disappear and lands that reappear. So I think this whole climate thing is going to get really big in the next 7 years, and by the time we're through with it, at the end of it, we will see really wonderful changes. We will find ways to use land differently. We'll be redoing a lot of the things that we're not doing well now. We will probably turn around and be a little bit more respectful to the land and to our planet. But it could bring a lot of major changes in the next 7 years. And we're already seeing some of that. So I'm a little concerned about that, but on the other hand, I would say stay in a even place, you know, because your energy, what we're seeing in the world right now is chaos. And everything's going to be chaotic until we start making these turns. And because they're still about 3 to 5 years away, we've got this time to develop this and move it in a particular generation or direction. If you decide you don't want to do any of this, well, we'll just want to get more and more chaotic. You know, but I would say that intent right now, meditation and being centered and trying to raise the vibration up, as Bonnie showed in her chart when she was talking about shame, and then, you know, what we do helps raise the vibrations up for everybody. So I believe that everything's in divine order. So even though I don't like what's going on, it doesn't matter if I like it or not. It's going on. It's in divine order. For some reason, you know, people on this planet are needing to go through these changes. We have all called this in on some level, what's going on and what will continue to go on for the next few years. And then, but we're also, because we're ready to become more clear, is the way I kind of look at it. You know, we're not clear what we want. You know, we thought we had this stuff covered. Now it's all a big mess, and we didn't have it covered. And now we need to go further. And so we're all being challenged. It's like the world is hitting that wall, and it's hard to hit a wall. It really is. You hurt yourself. So stop before you hit the wall and start redirecting or changing things on a consciousness level. But we're going to have major, wonderful consciousness swings that are coming, and this is your preparation time. Okay, I think that I probably, did I go over? I have no idea. Okay, so I want to I think Kathy's the one that suggested I do this, and I want to thank you for inviting me to do this and to be here today, and it's been a real blessing for me to meet people here and see some old friends, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.